We have Jason Mercer in the studio. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I have to actually refer to this.
Yes.
To read this because there's no way in my geriatric state I could possibly remember all this stuff.
Okay.
So, with Metro 4, you've been featured on the CBC, CMT.
Yeah.
You've been a voice on a feature film, The Camera's Eye.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
The Camera's Eye was it was an indie film that was shot in New York, and actually the guy who masters all our stuff lives and operates in New York, and he was basically the music consultant on the film. He was writing all the stuff for all the scary. It was a horror movie, so a lot of the scary scenes and all that kind of shrieky violin type stuff. So he was doing all that, and then it was sort of an in for us because he suggested they needed some sort of like pop rock tunes for a couple scenes. And so it was a nice sort of in for us that he was able to just kind of say, I have this band that I master, and they kind of dug a couple tunes, so they threw him in there. So
cool. Yeah.
So it wasn't something that we sort of came about by ourselves. It was sort of by his name's Duncan in New York. So yeah, it was nice of him to kind of give us the nod there and hook us up with that.
A lot of luck comes from who you know, eh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really does. For sure.
Okay, let me continue here.
Yes.
All right. You've done voice on commercials and radio jingles.
A couple, yeah.
Want to name which ones?
I did. I guess one notable one would be one called. What was the jingle called? It was for Lambton Mall in Sarnia, and it was called "Get It All" at Lambton Mall. A friend of mine, Daryl, actually, who was hired to engineer it, wrote the jingle, and we had a lot of fun with it. And it was kind of funny because after we did the jingle and thought sort of nothing of it, it's going to be out there for a couple of months or whatever, and that would be the end of it. They ended up, just because it was such a hilarious jingle, that they ended up having a competition at Lambton Mall where people would show up and do the jingle because it was super fast. And I didn't record it in, one take or anything. It was like phrase by phrase because this thing was so fast. It was almost like rapping.
Really?
But it was like sort of melodic, just super fast, and it was just all spliced together. So when I sometimes listen back to it, I think like, what? It just sounds a little bit ridiculous, but it's supposed to be sort of ear-catching and, it's on the radio, right? So that was really fun to do. We had a ton of fun doing it, and then I would run into people that we'd be playing gigs in Sarnia, and people, would be talking about that competition. And I ran into one guy, and he said, "Oh, I've heard that, Lambton Mall jingle." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Which one?" He says, they get it all at Lambton Mall. And I said, "That's me." And he's like, "No, it's not," because we had just met. I said, "Yeah, that's me. My friend wrote that jingle, and we did it in like an afternoon." And so I sort of sang it for him, and he's like, "That is you!" So, which is kind of funny. I've never heard it on the radio because it airs in, Sarnia, Lambton area, right? And I live in London, so I have the master of it, but I've never heard it on the radio. But I hear people referring to it all the time.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to hear that, and to hear that there was a competition. I don't know who won, but if you go on YouTube, there are contestants putting up videos. I thought it would be funny if I showed up and tried to do it.
That would be cool.
And just to see what would happen, right? Because there's no way I could do that, because the idea was to do it in one take for the competitors, but no way I could have done that. It was all spliced together. The secret demystified. So, yeah. Power of editing.
Okay. You were selected to play John Lennon in the world-renowned Fringe Festival's Beatle tribute.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was with Yuri Poole, guy in London who does the McCartney years. He was invited to do the Fringe Festival, I believe now. It's got to be at least 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. And he was invited to do basically sort of whatever project he wanted to do for the Fringe Festival. So he decided that he would basically do the Magical Mystery Tour album front to back. We weren't necessarily in costume because I know that he's sort of getting into that a bit now, but it wasn't sort of verbatim costume and stuff, but we basically did everything. He likes to do everything note for note and sort of replicate it to the true sound of the record. So yeah, we had Yuri and I had sort of known each other through other people. We hadn't really met, and I got a phone call from him one afternoon a few months before rehearsals, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, that would be really cool because it's the Fringe Festival. I'd never done that before, and a couple friends of mine were getting involved in the Fringe Festival, and I thought, why not? We'll do it. And it was great. All the guys in the band that I met were still really good friends. Actually, Daryl, who I mentioned that wrote that jingle,
right,
he's in the McCartney years. He's the keyboard player, and that's how we initially met because he was playing keys in that band. And then we had a guy named Dylan Lozon come in and play the George Harrison part, and we're still good friends. So it was a riot. We had a couple of mishaps in the first couple shows. We were wearing, we wanted to wear mustaches for I Am the Walrus.
Yeah.
But they were sort of like the Halloween store mustaches. And they don't stay on very well unless you put sort of glue there.
Okay.
And I think it was when we were going, before the I Am the Walrus song, basically he played, clips of the movie before the Magical Mystery Tour movie, which was terribly awesome and terrible at the same time. Played it sort of behind us, and then we'd go into songs. So we went into I'm the Walrus, and we'd have the mustaches on, and mine's like peeling off, because before the show, when I was taking the back off, it just frayed. So I ended up, as I go to sing the first, phrase, I take a breath, and just part of the mustache right, not in my mouth, in the back of my throat.
Oh, really?
I couldn't sing. I was like, sort of choking. And trying to sing it. We got through it, and then I just ran backstage, and I was trying to throw that thing up. It just would not come because I couldn't. It almost looked like it was on my vocal cords because I couldn't produce sound. Luckily, after that song, I think I missed a song where I was singing like backup harmony or something. I'm playing guitar, and then sort of made my way back out, and just tried to finish the show. And James Rainey at the London Free Press was at the show. That was the show he was reviewing. So he made note of that. So somewhere on the internet, that piece is on there talking about how I swallowed the mustache.
Is that on YouTube? Is that
I don't think so. There are clips of our performances, but they were from, we were doing like 2 or 3 a day or whatever it was. So I don't believe it is, thank God. It was not my finest moment, and I'm sure it's just embarrassing because people don't know what's happening, and you're choking, and I'm trying to sing and trying to get through it, but
did Yuri look at you like, what the hell are you doing?
He looked at me sort of like he knew something was wrong, but I just kind of looked at him and I just kept singing, and then I sort of looked at him and I did that because I was like, I'm going backstage to stick my fingers down my throat, which I've never had to do. But yeah, it wasn't a pleasant experience, but
Okay.
I haven't worn a fake mustache
Since?
I don't think so.
Okay, you're the official musician of the London sector of the MS Society annual bike tour.
Yeah, so sort of like the unofficial official musician, only because they ask me every year. It's not like, hey, you're going to be the guy for us every year, so it's this date, just come on out. They approach me usually every year, about 6 months in advance, and just kind of see if I can do it. I initially, when I started playing gigs, I did the first year there, and I just loved it. Like, they're great people. They're so nice. And everyone there is they're there for a great cause, and they're all really pleasant, and it's just a fun time, it's a very relaxed atmosphere, and I've just kept doing it. I think it's been like 6 or 7 years now, and, Saturday afternoon when, you're not, I usually gig at night, but in the afternoon, sort of set up and meet new people and have a couple beers and play some tunes,
Well, let me say, that's very admirable of you to do that, because to give you time like that year in and year out, you deserve a pat on the back. Man.
Well, it's fun. Like, and you sort of create relationships with the people there that work there.
Yep.
And you get to know those people, and you stay in touch. Not only, it's not just once a year you see them and then okay, bye. you meet different people, and there are new staff being hired and younger people being hired every year, and then you sort of just, you create these relationships with people, and it's just a great time. It's, it's not, I sort of don't even look at it sort of as an admirable thing anymore. I'm just sort of, these bikers are coming from, is it Grand Bend where they're coming from? Or no, I can't remember. Anyway, they're coming from there to London. It's like a 2-3 hour bike ride, and they're exhausted, they're hanging out, and they're the ones that have done the work. They've done fundraising and raised thousands of dollars for the MS Society, and they're just hanging out. So it's just nice to be able to add whatever I can, if I am, maybe.
Well, obviously you are.
Well, hopefully, so it's a good time.
Okay, your band Metro 4.
Mm-hmm.
Let's plug the guys in the band.
Okay. Metro 4, there's 4 of us. We sort of got, the name sort of existed before I joined the band. There were different members long before I was ever in the band, but they had a singer who left, and they were writing a lot of stuff, and they were actually in the middle of recording a first EP, and their singer basically had another project that he had former ties to, and he had to leave, which was fine. And I actually was approached by our guitar player. His name it's spelled Daniel. It's actually pronounced Daniel. He's from Switzerland. Grew up in Switzerland.
Cool.
And long story to how he ended up here. Anyway, he's here. And so he sort of started the band, and he actually approached me he did a search for London, Ontario musicians on MySpace, if you remember what MySpace is.
Yeah, I remember that, vaguely.
Which apparently is making a comeback now. So he reached out to me, and it was funny because the timing was weird, because I had always been performing solo, which I still do and which I still love. And he sort of approached me at a time when I was thinking, I'd really love to be in a band. Like, I just want that, a rock, alt-rock, pop band,
right.
sort of scenario. And it had been a couple of months that I was thinking about it and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and he approached me. And, a lot of times some people, send you music, hey, fill in on this, listen to it, and you're like, yeah, it's not really for me, but whatever. And I absolutely loved what they had recorded. It was right up my alley. I really liked the melodies that were being written and the lyrics. The drummer at the time, who's not our drummer anymore, had been writing a lot of the lyrics, and I just loved it all. So he said, I'll pick you up, come to a rehearsal, see how you like it, and we'll go from there. So I just went, I learned a couple, probably 2 or 3 songs, went to rehearsal, and the next day it was one of those scenarios where, you kind of think, okay, if they want me to join the band, like, I'll let them, like, I'm not going to be a needy, whatever. I'll just let them come to me. But I think it was 2 days later, I finally texted the guitar player and said, look, I really enjoyed that. I hope, I can join the band. And he said, yeah, we'd love for you to join the band. Cool. Which was great. So that was years ago. I don't know, like 6 years ago, probably 5 or 6 years. And we've accomplished a lot since then. We work hard, not only, rehearsing and writing, but we do we spend a lot of time during the week on the business side of things. We were talking about gigs, and I was saying that we're a very relentless band. We spend tons of time on the computer, sending emails, phone calls, and, networking and stuff like that. So, which
has to be done.
It's very important. It's a lot of times, and I read a lot on sort of the current state of the music industry and being an independent musician, and yep. You have to be half musician, half businessman. It's not sort of like it was where a lot of stuff, especially when we're talking about labels and stuff, where a label will take care of this and that, and you can just focus on doing your own thing. Especially as an independent musician now, you've got to take control of everything. Even if you do have help,
yep.
You need to be aware of everything that's going on in your career, in order to be successful. So it's very time consuming.
And the labels aren't. It's changed so dramatically from the people I know who work for labels. It's not like the old days where they gave you a wad of cash, they push you, they sell you to radio stations, they send you on the road. It's nowhere near like that.
Yeah.
Now even if you're attached to a label, you're still doing the groundwork.
Of course, yeah, sure. There's a band, a friend of mine. They were based in Toronto. They're not together anymore, but they were together for probably at least 15 years, and they were signed to a label. For a while, it wasn't a development deal. It was more than a development deal, but it wasn't a full-fledged sort of we support you and everything. And talking to them, it's like your record sounds amazing. They recorded it with so and so and recorded it at this studio wherever, and it's like, oh, like that's great that you have some financial backing. And they're like, well, we paid for more than half of it, and then whatever they put into it, if they don't recoup that. When we tour and sell CDs off the stage or online digitally, we owe them that money. I had another friend in New York who was signed with Columbia for a while, and he said he owed like $15,000 when they basically said when they chopped him, because they backed him, but then part of the contract stipulation was you have to make up if you don't sell these records. So. He was selling a lot of records. He just wasn't touring as much as he should, and he sort of mentioned that they weren't pushing him as much as they could have.
Yep.
Whether that's true or not, whatever. There's two sides to every story, and that's sort of the way it goes. Now everyone's releasing everything independently, and even on independent labels, you're not getting. There's no money.
Yeah, which you kind of wonder, but it's drastically changed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, how do musicians do it?
Yeah, it's sort of you just gotta do what you gotta do in order to pay for stuff.
Yep.
To tour. Whether you work full time for 4 or 5 months and save your money and be a hermit and don't go out, and then in order to fund a month and a half of touring, and pushing an album, that's sort of what you have to do. Which is great because it creates a great work ethic. But it's a lot harder now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 27, so I can't speak about what it was like, but I mean, I have friends like Archie, we were talking about earlier, Archie Gamble and other guys that are older than me that have, sort of explained how it goes. And just from what I gather, it's just like, it's so much harder now, but.
Yeah. And, getting back to the original point from your friend in New York, it's who you meet. That one person who might be able to open a door or crack open a door that leads to somebody else.
For sure.
And you're on your way.
Yeah.
Like our good friend Sarah Smith.
Mm-hmm.
This lady is gigging incessantly across Canada.
Yeah.
She never stops.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, and she's doing well, but with her talent and her personality, like she deserves more success than what she's garnered.
Sure.
She's done well.
Yeah, of course.
Hopefully at some point she's going to meet the right person and wham, away she goes.
That's right.
But you put in all that work and all that effort and you're a sincere, genuine, nice person, it's kind of like, wow, what do I have to do next? Mm-hmm. It's always the what do I have to do next.
A lot of times it just seems like luck of the draw, right?
Yeah.
In the 90s, band A was discovered in a bar by whoever, and if they had if their singer was sick that night and they had to cancel the gig, they might not be
where they are.
Yeah. So it's tricky. It's just like, it's one of the industries where it seems like there are no rules, and if there are, they're always changing, and there's nothing to grab onto in order to say, okay, this is going to give me success. You just have to work hard.
Yep. Okay, now with the band Metro 4, you've opened for Stone Temple Pilots, Sloan,
yeah,
The Trues, Tragically Hip,
yeah,
Our Lady Peace, The Stills, and more.
And more. Yeah, I mean...
whoa.
Oh, okay.
Let me throw this in. You also play Bayfest.
Yes. Yeah, okay, so some of the bands that you mentioned, when people ask us that, because they see it on the website or whatever, there's sort of a difference between, with the Tragically Hip and STP, those were both Bayfest gigs. So we weren't, their direct opener and hanging out with them and chummy backstage. But actually, Tragically Hip, that's not true, actually. We were kind of hanging out with them. They're pretty fun guys. But yeah, on the same bill at Bayfest. And that's just another example. The Bayfest gig is sort of what we always look back to when, you know, we're down about whatever gig or, you know, just sort of, you know, at a bit of a standstill as a band.
Yep.
Kind of look at that and we're like, do you remember how we got that gig and how persistent we were? You know what I mean? And we actually played it twice. We just skipped a year. So the first year was the lineup was us, a band called C Spot Run from Montreal, Toronto, who we're actually still friends with because we met them there. Great guys. And then it was Our Lady Peace and then STP. And then the second year was us, Arkells, let me get this right. Us, Arkells, Joel Plaskett, another really nice guy who actually watched our set. That was pretty cool. And Tragically Hip. So that was cool. You know,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
We did hang out with some of those guys. Very nice. One of the guys from the Hip, we were just backstage standing around after our set, and he just didn't say anything. He just had a cigarette in his mouth, and he walked over, and we were sort of in a circle, and he just stood there. I guess he was bored. So he just walked over and then just stood there, and I couldn't remember his name. I know most of their names. But I'm looking at him, and I was like, oh man, that's a guitar player from the Hip, but I can't remember his name. So I'm on with my phone, and it's at night. So I'm like trying to see my phone, and he's standing right there, and I'm trying to figure out his name, because I don't want to be like, hi, I'm Jason from Metro 4. Nice to meet you. What's your name? Because they expect that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they know, you know who they are. So I'm Wikipedia, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and it's like left to right. I'm trying to read it, and finally I just sort of gave up, and I was like, you guys are great. I hope you guys have a good set. And he just kind of stood there silently.
Could have said, hey, buddy.
Yeah, I said, do you want a beer? You know, bring us a beer. No, he was really nice. He was just super quiet. And then, like, someone came over. It was like an assistant came over, and they're like, you're on in 5 or something. And he's like, oh, I think I have to go. And just walked away.
Really?
Yeah, it was very cool. It was one of those things where we're like, who was that? And it's like, yeah, it was. You know?
Did you ever find out his name?
Yeah, but now I can't remember it. That's terrible. I can't remember it. If I heard it, I would know it. That's bad. Anyway, very nice guy.
So to get these gigs, not just any band pulls this off. So obviously there's a good amount of respect for you as a band, you as an artist, whatever the case may be, because not everybody just walks into Bayfest. And I don't mean that it's as simple as that.
Right.
But it's a prestigious gig.
It is, yeah.
And they don't just hand it out to anybody, even if you're the opening band at the bottom of the bill.
Sure.
And that's not demeaning when I say that.
No, of course, yeah.
Because you're there. You're
Yeah.
on stage with all these other bands that are following up behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a major coup.
Yeah, basically, to make a long story short, is we just applied. We just basically... through Sonic Bids online, we have an EPK on there, and you know, with pictures and video and music, obviously, and we just sort of we applied, and we started sending a couple emails, just like sort of, you know, just inquiring about the state of, you know, bands being selected, and we were pretty persistent about it, and. We just, I guess that first year that we ended up playing, that's how we got our foot in the door. You know, we lucked out. They usually narrow it down, I guess, like 5 or 10 bands for that opening slot or the opening 2 slots. And we ended up getting it the first year. And then that sort of got our foot in the door. And then, of course, when you're there, you're meeting all the people that are running the event and all the staff and everything like that. And I guess they liked us, you know. We pride ourselves on being a band that is very easy to get along with, and we're very polite. You know, we're not trashing hotel rooms and stuff. You know, that's right, can't afford it. Yeah. You know, we love what we do, and we work hard at it, and we're just easy to get along with. So, I think people see that, and they do. It is refreshing in terms of, you know, I guess rock and roll. And not saying that all bands are like that, because they're certainly not, but yeah, you know, we're good boys.
And you know, as a lesson to younger bands or musicians coming up, you're persistent, you persevere, you don't get down by the industry.
Mm-hmm.
you're professional about your job,
Right.
and it all pays off.
Well, there's not. It's just like the little things, like show up on time for your gig.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at events like Bayfest, you know what? Usually, if we go to play a show in Toronto at Lee's Palace or the Horseshoe or wherever it is, you're getting there in the afternoon. You're lugging your stuff in. You're waiting. You know, you probably have like a 2-minute sound check or even a line check for the show, and then you're killing time. Whereas sort of like a place like Bayfest or an event like that, you know, you show up and there's no reason not to be professional because you show up, you open your doors and people just take your stuff out of the car. You know what I mean? Which is great, but of course we're like not used to that, so we're oh no, let me take that, it's heavy, and they're like, this is my job, dude. You know, which is great, but I mean, there's especially it just bothers me in this industry. Even just performing, 3 or 4 nights a week on my own, how I make my living, hearing about people that, burn every bridge that they've ever made, or, showing up late for a gig consistently, or arguing about this and that, it's like, it's just uncalled for, because that just makes a bad name for the guys who are trying to... be professional about this, and luckily there are most guys are very professional, but I mean there are some out there that are sort of ruining the reputation, but you just sort of that those guys aren't going to go very far.
Yeah, they'll fall off the scale.
Yeah,
like Pat and Kyle and James and I were talking about this earlier, and Yuri's a perfect example, and Archie actually referred to this, and so did John Balone. As a band, we're entertainers.
Mm-hmm.
To go in and just simply stand there and play doesn't cut the cake anymore.
No.
It's about, and Yuri's a great example, he puts on a show.
Exactly.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's about going in and having a show.
Exactly.
You don't have to have the lights and the smokes and lasers, but you have to move.
Yeah, you've got to do something, especially in terms of if you're playing covers, 4 or 5 or even 6 nights a week, people, you're right, people don't want to see you stand there and play and just play their favorite songs. There's got to be something. There's got to be more to it. There's got to be more, preconceived or even just preparation, I would call it. It's like when Archie and I play a gig together and we go in and the demographic of the bar, say, is 40 to 65-year-olds. We say, all right, what do we want to go heavy on tonight in terms of genre or whatever? Let's put these songs together. Let's do this. Make people dance. We're not playing stuff that 40 to 65-year-old people don't want to hear, whereas I think some, there is a bit of that, some guys just sort of set up and it's like, okay, well, I just play my set or whatever, repeat 3 songs.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just, you just gotta have to be at the top of your game.
Now that we've said it, Archie, you do the duo with Archie.
Yeah.
So what does that consist of?
Well, it's pretty cool. The first time that Archie and I played a gig together, we just shook hands and played. It was literally a case of I had a gig and I needed a drummer, and I actually had booked him about a month before. It was just a matter of, I think I put on Facebook, need a drummer for this date. Usually I use, my drummer Ryan in Metro 4, but he's also a full-time musician as well, so he's out playing his own gigs.
Right.
So we sort of discovered that every time I was playing where I'd need a duo, it was usually on a Thursday, Friday kind of thing, where he's busy. So Archie and I ended up meeting. Someone threw his name out there, and I picked him up. We shook hands, talked. I think it was a Sarnia gig. And he basically, with me, it's kind of cool because he doesn't bring a full kit or even a stripped-down kit. He basically brings his, I want to call it like an octopad. I think it's got 8 pads on it, or maybe 6, I can't remember. And he's got just the kick drum here, which is just literally just basically like a kick drum, what's it called? Pedal, yeah, with just a pad. So he stands with that and drumsticks and his in-ear monitors, and he's got a monitor if he wants to use it. And he just, it's insane how this guy can play. I mean, because he knows the thing so well, which is like I'd have to sit there and be like, okay, because preset 1 is this, preset 2 is all different, and it actually is sort of entertaining, and it's really cool because people get engaged by it. A lot of drummers, I always just, when we take a break, I have to walk away because drummers, hey man, that's so cool. Like, can I try it? Because it's got all those sounds, right?
Yeah.
And it's engaging because, if we're playing a room where, a lot of people, it's just easygoing, people are having a fun time and it's very relaxed. He's got like gongs and like just the weirdest, like half the time I look over at him, we'll finish a song, like a Tom Petty song, I don't know, and he plays it, verbatim, exactly like the record, which is great, which is with his own little Archie fills and stuff. But then, I'll be tuning for the next song, and you hear, boom, and then people in the bar, they love it, right? They turn around and they're like, "That's hilarious!" And then drummers, like I said, approach him, "Dude, that's so cool! Like, where'd you get that?" And it's cool for him to be able to do that. I'm just playing acoustic guitar with a couple of pedals at my feet, right? He usually he doesn't sing. We actually talked about doing that, but I actually play with, because I do a lot of solo gigs. I play with a harmonizer pedal just because I was starting to get bored. I needed to entertain myself, and I do a lot of Beatles and stuff like that where the harmonies are pretty heavy, and so I play with like a harmonizer and it works. He does his own thing and makes the crowd laugh, and then I kind of do my thing and it works.
Do you give him a microphone?
Well, he actually said the other day, I had never asked him, and he said, "Do you mind if I do some singing? Because we've got a bunch of dates this summer coming up." And he said, "Do you mind if I have a mic?" I was like, "That's cool, He's like, "Because I'd like to get more into, singing some songs." It's like, perfect, it gives me a break. If we're playing a 4-hour gig, I don't mind, standing there playing guitar while you sing.
He's a great singer.
Yeah, you know what? I heard him the first time, the other night at Eastside's.
Yeah.
First time I ever heard him sing.
Yeah, he is a great singer.
Yeah.
And at least when and I kid him about this at last Monday's Norma Jean's jam, and all night he was like doing the twirly stick thing.
Yeah.
And he lost one. One went off like a projectile, and he just reached in, and he didn't stop it. He kept doing the twirly thing. I said, "Do you ever stop doing that?" And he goes, "Well, this is what I do." Mm-hmm. But when he's a lead vocalist, he can't twirl a stick.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? When he got up there, I thought he would make an excellent frontman.
Oh yeah,
he's a great all around musician, so he has confidence whatever he's doing, which is great because not a lot of people can do that. The other night, I'm thinking, I said to his fiance, I said, like, he's like good up there singing, like he's really engaging. I feel like I would like to watch him sing for another hour or whatever. He's a good guy.
So you have a lot of fun, anyways.
Yeah, we have a ton of. He just keeps me. He keeps me laughing. We'll be in the car, and he's just telling me, tell me a story about, touring, whatever, and he'll tell me a story, and I end up just in stitches, or in the middle of a set, if I'm just like, oh man, that song was terrible, on my part or whatever, and he can tell that I'm sort of just, not down, but just sort of like, kind of, pissed at myself or whatever. He'll just, come up to me and just tell me, he'll just a dirty joke in my ear, and I'm just there laughing like a lunatic, and he walks away, and I'm just there in stitches. He's that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of those guys that I think people are drawn to him.
He's charismatic. Absolutely.
He is, and he's just a fun guy. He's sort of like an older brother figure to me. But we have a riot, and we mesh, musically, and he's got such a. In his head, just the repertoire of he's been playing, original music and covers all his life.
Oh, he's like a human jukebox.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's like, hey, do you know this song? And he's like, I think so. If it's something that he doesn't necessarily know, if it's something lesser well known. And it's just, I'll start playing, and I'm like, whatever you want to come in, and he'll play exactly what is on that recording, even though if he's never heard it. I'm like, how did you know that?
I know.
It's like, I just, that's just what it should be there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, you play a lot around London. You play the Windermere Cafe a lot. Mm-hmm. You play Jack's every week.
On Saturday nights,
yeah. We went in there and saw you one night at Jack's.
Yeah. It was a crazy one.
And you know what? Did you hear the story when we were outside?
Well, I heard that you had to sort of name drop because they were like, no, you can't come in because there was a line, right?
Yeah, it was like 60 or 70 people, and I said to the bouncer, I said, I'm here to see Jason Mercer. And he goes, why? And I said, well, he's a client of mine. Well, you don't look like the kind that normally come here, so I guess you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
And Pat and I are kind of laughing and I'm thinking, oh, God. So security took the four of us,
Yeah.
Kim and Barb,
Yeah.
and marched us through. And as soon as we walked through the door, like, I'm not a big person for, like, being like a sardine can.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, like, I'm turning this way and this way. And everybody's, like, a third of my age.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, and then we're all getting a look, eh? Like, what the hell are these old folks doing in there? So
Sure.
then they let us up to you. And then we got a table.
Mm-hmm.
And I could barely see you behind the post.
Right.
And I had about 6 guys come up to me totally hammering and go, I love you, brother. I love you, brother.
Yeah, of course.
But having said all that, it was fun because I actually felt in a place that I shouldn't have been.
Right.
Just because of the demographic.
Oh, of course.
But the other thing I really took notice of is everybody was getting into you. Because you're doing your solo act.
Right.
And every tune you were nailing was a great tune. There was not one single dud song or song that I didn't go, what is that?
Right.
Every song was recognizable.
Yeah, well, it's one of those venues where people just, I mean, if you're not, like we're talking, being the top of your game, or you're not sort of, it's a very, very sing-along. People just want to have fun. They want to go, have some drinks, have fun, sing along to what you're doing, and be entertained. Especially at that gig is sort of where I'll put together, not necessarily preconceived medleys, but, if I'm in the key of G or whatever, and I'll just think, okay, fast song in the key of G, keep it going, and people just respond to that. You keep the energy high. My friend is the DJ on the main floor. He DJs there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we have talks about that, like you were saying, getting up and just playing songs. It's not good enough. We talk about, just the sets that you play. There's got to be some kind of rise and fall, or in my case, when I'm upstairs, mostly rise, and you keep it there.
Yep.
I take a quick break and I come back and I'll start with something, just to hit him in the face. You know what I mean? Keep the party going. Because usually when I take a break, I'll turn on the just the feed from the main floor, right? So it's still pumping, right? But then when I come back, you just have to keep it going. It sometimes can be an exhausting gig because it's so hot up there and there's so many people, and it's just high energy. But it's actually, I've been there for about 4.5 years, or 4.5 or 5 years now, every Saturday, and I love it. It's just a riot,
Well, if you've nailed this gig, because I didn't know how long you had been doing this, so if you've nailed this for 4.5, 5 years, obviously from the terms of management, you're doing a hell of a good job.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for them to come up and actually kind of witness, because that place is so busy. The managers are running around the whole time. But, I mean, it's just as long as you're doing your job well, then that's, sort of all you need to worry about, and for me, it's a riot. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite gigs, just because the energy's there. I mean, you were saying you felt like you were older. I'm 27 and I feel older when I'm there. Because, it's the university age, right?
Yep.
And it's definitely that sort of age demographic. And I love it because they have the energy. They've got lots of enthusiasm. For the most part, everyone's, well behaved. But and it's great. I bring like a tambourine up there if it's like a girl's birthday, get her up and embarrass her so her friends can take pictures of how drunk she was the night before and all that kind of stuff. Or, you'll see, often I'll look down and there's a girl crying or something. Her boyfriend just walked away from her. It's like, you, get up here. And she's like, what, me? Play the tambourine. All of a sudden it's just like...
Totally different.
Just forget about that for a couple minutes. Or come have fun for a few hours and forget about, the terrible mark you just got on your exam or whatever, you know. And I always welcome people, I tell them at the end of the night, get home safe, come back and party with me next week, we'll do it all again. And I like to add new repertoire every week just to keep it fresh. It's just that sort of thing that you sort of have to do in that environment in order to stay alive, I guess.
Well, you're doing a good job of it.
Thanks. Yeah, I love it. It's great. It's great.
Future plans for you, for Metro 4, together, separately?
Yeah, we're doing, as a band, we're doing a ton of writing right now, and we're trying to figure out when and what we'd like to put on the next album. It's always hard because we're trying to figure out, we have a bunch of songs that we work hard on for 6, 7, or 8 months, and we sort of are firm believers now in that, you know, in the 90s when I was going to, you know, the record store every few times a week to get, you know, a new CD, you know, 12, 14, 16, 18 songs on a record, a lot of that is filler, you know?
Yeah.
So we've sort of decided as a band that our strategy is, you know what, our last record we did, Day One, we put, I think there's 12 songs on it. I basically said to the guys, I'm like, we can't do that again. We need to, basically, if we have 12 songs, we've really got to pick out the strongest songs, because especially now in this day and age, we're talking about the record industry. It's like if you can't grab people's attention in the first 5 seconds, they're not going to listen to you. So we've sort of said, you know, we write 8 songs, use 4 or 5 of them, put them on an EP maybe, and as we're doing that, we're writing more, and that creates more material, and then if in 6 months you want to do another one, then you can do that, you know what I mean? It's just, I feel like nowadays people are unless you're a well-established artist that has a massive following and fans that, you know, say, like a band like STP, they could put out 14-track album and I'll go buy it without even listening to it, just because I'm a big fan. So that's sort of our strategy. I don't know when we do a lot of demoing on stuff. We do pre-production a lot on our own, just to save time in a studio situation. So we do a lot of that, and our plans now, we're playing lots of shows. We just played Canadian Music Week, which was fun, and we're sort of lining up some shows for the summer. We're gonna play. I think we're going to do probably just one London show in the summer. We try to limit ourselves to London just so we don't oversaturate. We'll probably do a couple in Toronto, but right now we're really focused on writing and demoing stuff and pre-production. And myself, I'm playing a ton of gigs, sort of like the Jack's gig and you said Windermere. I'm doing a lot of stuff like that and a lot of private events, and I'm writing a lot and demoing at home and trying to figure out. I have no idea. You know, all my songs are just like, I'm just genre hopping all over the place. So I'm trying to nail down right now what kind of record do I want to make. It'll probably be an EP because of that whole, you know, diatribe I just gave you. And I know where I'm going to be recording it, I think, and I know who's going to be involved. It's just a matter of sort of nailing down exactly what I want this to sound like and what songs I want to be on there. So you know, I'm just trying to make things as strong as they can be.
Yep.
You know,
and that's good that you're doing that, because you're slowly planning and being persistent about what it is you want to end up with.
Yeah, I mean, I've never understood how bands can maybe they just write good songs fast. You know, bands will put out a record that they worked, you know, 8 or 9 months on, and then they tour for 5 or 6 months, and then they're in the studio recording another record. I'm like, when did you have time to write and you know, pre-pro all these songs and demo all this stuff? Like, when did you have time to do that? When you were, I guess if you're touring, like, there's a lot of downtime and there's a lot of stuff that you can get done. But in my mind, for me, it's sort of a slow and steady kind of wins the race kind of philosophy. I write songs slow. I'll have a melody in my head. I'll put it down. You know, I'll just demo it or whatever. And then like 2 months later, I'm back to it thinking, oh yeah, I should finish that. And then sometimes I get stuck. Sometimes songs just fall out. You know, it's the typical things that songwriters say. You know, either it doesn't come, or, you know, you get writer's block, or the songs fall out of you in 10 minutes. Which I also am not a firm believer in that, because if a song fell out of you in 10 minutes, it probably needs some more work. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's just my opinion. But so that's what I'm up to, and yeah, it's going to be a great summer, I think, and busy with gigs and seeing. I'm sort of trying to get out more to other people's gigs. Like a lot of friends, I gig on the weekend, so it's hard. But you know, if friends are playing on Wednesday or Thursday, I really like to get out there and support, you know, the London scene, and, you know, drag friends along with me, and, you know, just get out there and see new music, and especially supporting the venues in London, because we know that there have been a couple in the past few years that have sort of been dwindling. But I really do believe that's important. It's just to keep that going. So
I think there's a bar just opened in the old Maggie spot. Mm-hmm. So that's encouraging. Mm-hmm. And I know from talking to my friends that some of the venues they're not making a lot, but they're doing well.
Yeah.
The thing is, the summertime when people tend to go outside more than to come into a venue.
Sure.
So I think we still got a path to go, but like it's, and you know what you said about going to see other people. I know myself, this has happened to me. When you go and see your friends play, they're more inclined to come see Jason Mercer at Jack's or Metro 4 or whatever. Because you can't say, well, you know, come see me, but I haven't got time to see you.
I just tell friends there's free beer.
There you go.
And then when they get there, they're disappointed.
You lie to them.
I say, there is free beer. I'll buy you one. But only one. No, it is important. And I also believe that, I mean, I think that a lot of sort of the university age demographic we were talking about that go to Jackson and frequent sort of the Richmond Row bars, you know, those are all great places to party and all that kind of stuff. But different venues, it would be nice to see sort of the younger, and I say this, I'm 27, but the younger generation go out to these other venues that they've never been to.
Yep.
I meet people in fourth year, university or at Fanshawe College, that it's like, you know, let's go to this bar. Like, have you ever been to this bar? If you really like live music, they're like, whoa, what? Like, where's that? I'm like, well, just like 5-minute walk from where you normally go, you know?
Yeah.
And there's just not necessarily as much of an awareness as there could be. And I mean, you're doing a great job of doing that stuff, but it takes a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
In order to do that. And it just is nice to see your hometown. I was born and raised in London, so it's nice to see these venues that I started going to when I was 19 do well and continue to do well, you know?
Yeah.
Hopefully my kids will go party at whatever venues and go see their friends' bands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just you got to keep it alive. And so I can do my part by going and paying $6 to see my buddy's band. Awesome. You know, I'm there. As long as I can be, you know?
Cool.
And as long as there's free beer.
That's free beer.
Just kidding.
Okay, before we close it out, you're in the studio. You got 2 guitarists, a bass player, and a drummer. Who would you pick to do a record with you?
Oh my gosh. What was it again? A drummer?
Drummer, bass player, and 2 guitarists. You're going to be the singer.
Oh, okay. I'm going to be the singer? Okay. Bass for sure. And this is bad, but the bass player in Metro 4, his name is Danny Dubé. He is one of the most humble, quiet guys you'll ever meet. He's a guitar player first. He is one of the most fantastic bass players I've ever met. And not just because of his chops. I mean, he has chops. He's not like a crazy, all over the place bass player. But the stuff that he writes on the bass, because it sort of comes from his guitar past, his history on the guitar, he's sort of Paul McCartney-esque, except he's just even more creative. And I love that. I love when someone can take sort of that sort of instrument and be more melodic than normal on it.
Yep.
Drummer, I don't know. That's hard, because I have a lot of friends that are drummers, and they all have different styles, and they're all really good. Does this have to be friends, or can it be anyone?
Anybody.
Anybody?
Anybody.
Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Anybody?
Big league, small league.
Deceased? Alive? They have to be alive to be there, right?
Gotta be.
You just prop them up with a drum set? John Bonham's still got to be a skeleton, right?
Yeah.
No. Honestly, I don't know if I can answer that. I've always thought about when I do my next record on my own, it'll be sort of someone different on each track. I don't know. It's hard.
You're going to take the fifth on this, aren't you?
I might have to. I don't know. I'm a fan of so many drummers. But I'm not a drummer myself, so it's not like I can say, okay, that guy definitely. Because every drummer has a favorite drummer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I might have to plead the fifth on that.
Guitarist.
A guitarist?
2 of them.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. Okay, so guitar, that's hard, too. I'm a guitar player, so I'm a fan of so many people, right?
The guy in Tragically Hip, whose name is?
He would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, my music doesn't necessarily lend itself to any crazy guitar playing, so sort of like a a Stevie Ray Vaughan-esque sort of, we know that sort of John Mayer is sort of in that bluesy realm. I'm a big fan, but I don't think I would pick him just because of, he's very tasteful.
He's dust too.
But, I don't know. I think I would like to be, this sounds really cheesy, but I would like a room full of my friends that know me.
That's not cheesy.
Instead of saying, I want John Bonham on the drums, and I want Stevie Ray Vaughan on the guitar, and I want Jimi Hendrix on the other guitar, and James Taylor waiting to play acoustic. I don't know. I don't know. It would just have to be, I think it would have to be my friends, and just, I find that's sort of the, I love jamming with people that I've just met.
Yeah.
Because it does keep you on your toes, but I love the idea of, people that I've played with, like Danny on bass. I can't think of a better, bass player suited to sort of my style of music. I don't know, you put me on the spot. There's so many guitar players and so many bands that I like. I think it would be really fun to jam with a guy like Dave Grohl, because I think it would be a riot.
Yep.
On drums or guitar. There's so,
Just so you know, Kyle said if you couldn't answer this question,
yeah,
that you would be buying beer for everybody.
Okay. So now I gotta figure it out. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, let's do this. Let's do Dave Grohl on drums. Let's do my buddy Danny on bass.
2 guitars.
2 guitarists.
Not dust.
Not okay. Let's do. Maybe I'll have like a electric guitar player and acoustic guitar player.
That Canadian's tasting really good right
now. Maybe I'll have James Taylor, like I said earlier, on acoustic. You know what would be a great guy on acoustic guitar? Is someone like Tommy Emmanuel, the instrumental acoustic guitar player.
Okay.
You need to look. Oh, he is fantastic. Him, because he would make me look good. Him on acoustic, and then let's pick someone like let's do. Just left field. Let's do what's his name? Dean DeLeo from STP on electric guitar.
Oh, there you go.
Because he's another guitar player that I really enjoy.
Okay, just 1 pitcher and 5 straws.
I'd be happy to.
Jason,
you drinking here?
You were such a blast.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.